What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 8 theory video, where I did with number 1. Langston Fleury is Martian Manhunter. Now, the evidence behind that is that he's had some scenes where he's referencing himself and others, and he's trying to very point out the fact that they're humans and we're human. So it kind of be an alien thing to say, but also the bird blindness. I think the bird blindness is the biggest reason why this theory is alive, is because it's so weird for a human to have bird blindness. Something like a Martian, that would be a little bit more reasonable as to why he is blind to birds. But overall, I don't think this is very likely, just due to the nature of some of his jokes and the obviously like sexual abuse level of like jokes that he's telling. I just don't think Martian Manhunter would say some of the things that he did this season. So obviously I don't think he is Martian Manhunter, but that's a good theory. One of my personal theories is that the Green Lanterns will show up, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. Now, it's not very likely due to the nature of the story, but the reason why I even keep this theory alive is due to the marketing aspect and it being something that James Gunn might seem like he wants to do. We saw Supergirl show up at the end of Superman as a kind of marketing tool to set up the next DCU movie. So what if Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart show up at Peacemaker in the end to kind of set up the next DCU show? That's the only logic I can see behind it at all. Not really anything story wise. So I don't think it's very likely. Next, I question, will Bloodsport or any of the other characters left alive in the Suicide Squad movie show up? The only person I could see showing up from that team is probably Bloodsport because of his history with Peacemaker. Maybe the government hires him at the end of season 2 to track down Peacemaker, something of the sort. But I'm not sure it's very likely. Remember, these are all theories and things that I think would be pretty cool to see, but not very likely again. Now, in my opinion, we're kind of moving out of the unlikely category, but they're very possible to happen. Next is one of my personal favorites. Will Harcourt get a Peace Wrecker costume? I think that Harcourt will end the season with a Peace Wrecker costume, and all the hints are there subtly all the way back to Suicide Squad. Because when Rick Flag Jr. makes fun of his costume, Harcourt continues that on in season 1 and season 2, and it seems like the way that they treated her character at the beginning with the toxic masculinity and her going into the bar fights, you can see that it kind of has one solid theme, and that is like the word wreck. Like, she is a wrecker. She wrecks shit. She messes stuff up. So I think the way that they built her character was pretty in line with those words, and which is why I think it's been a hint the whole time that she'll end up being Peace Wrecker. How cool would it be to see Amelia Harcourt in a Peace Wrecker costume? Come on. Next is, how will Keith from Universe X story play out? I think that he won't have much to do with this next episode, but I do think it would be really cool if Keith sneaks into our universe at some point to then track down Peacemaker and become his arch enemy and his supervillain, but later on. You don't really touch on it right now, but you show him sneaking into our doorway to set up a future, and you always know as a fan that is looming in the background. Now, do I think Superman shows up? I actually do not think Superman will show up physically, just because I know that James Gunn's hinted at that is not the case, and it's not likely that his power scale fits the story. He's so powerful that if he does show up in any form, it's kind of overpowering for what the story of Peacemaker brings us. It's kind of more of a grounded. I know we were traveling multiverses, but even in that aspect, it was very much a grounded story. And I don't think that the power scale that Superman provides is very needed in this story. Maybe just a post-credit scene, maybe something funny, him touching on what Peacemaker was saying about him in an interview in Superman, something along those lines, but definitely not expecting to see him. But I would also love to see him because who does not want to see David Cornswet Superman, especially after seeing Lex Luthor show up? Come on, man. Now, my next theory is, who is the main villain or the bigger villain that Peacemaker episode 8 is hinting at? Now, I think there's two parts to this question because James Gunn kind of laid it out like two parts. He said this episode will set up Superman sequel and the more overarching villain of the chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. He also said that the concept of episode 8 he pitched to David Zaslav in his process of trying to become the head of DC Studios. So to me, that indicates that he used this episode to set up the real Thanos level story in his first chapter, Gods and Monsters. He's hinted that in the Superman sequel, we will be getting Brainiac. But I think that those two things can be true at the same time. You see, I think that the QUC belongs to Brainiac because when Augie and Chris and Keith kill the alien type being to get the QUC, right before you see the alien, you hear monkey sounds, which to me hints that that alien was Coco the space monkey. So I think that he's hinting at Brainiac for the Superman sequel, but I also think he's hinting at Darkseid as the overarching villain of Gods and Monsters. And so far this season, all the big reveals have had very obvious Easter eggs earlier in the season that once we look back on it, once it's revealed, we were all like, oh, of course, obviously. And I don't think Darkseid is any different. When you see this picture of the doorway from the first trailer, and when you see Langston Fleury open that door and the universe with the skull and all the flames, I think that that was another clue just shoved in our faces. I think the planet with the skull heads, I think that that is actually Apocalypse. And that is where Darkseid is at. And by them opening that door, they're actually opening the door to Darkseid, who can then start going through and conquering those universes, starting his process to conquering the universes and finding the mother boxes. So I think that we're hinting at two villains at one time. My ultimate theory is that Brainiac created the QUC and that Darkseid, through what we're doing by opening the doors and messing with everything, is going to then have access to the QUC through the doorway that we open to Apocalypse. That is my ending theory. And I think that Darkseid will communicate with Lex Luthor when the government allows him to investigate and research the QUC further. I think this would lead into a plot as to why Luthor would help Superman and the government defeat Brainiac, but while also kind of creating the Legion of Doom behind the scenes with Darkseid and helping out Darkseid with his evil plans, keeping that villainy that we all know and love by Lex Luthor. The finale comes out tonight. Enjoy it. Hopefully, we all get our minds blown. Hopefully, we all get what we want. Let me know down in the comments after you watch it. What did you guys think? My breakdown video will be out on Saturday or Sunday. All love to you guys. Hopefully, this blows our minds like we think it will.